Hello everyone, thank you for coming to our talk today. Before we start, let me ask you something. How many times have you tried something and failed? Cool. How many times you learned something from that failure? Interesting. Okay, you are in the right room. Thank you for coming to our talk. Congratulations, you have failed, continuously learning from failed experiments. My name is Sarah Shahawi. I work at Pivotal. I'm a program manager, and I'm based in Dublin office.
And my name is Claire. I'm a program manager with Pivotal as well, and I'm based in the New York office.
Cool.
So we want to tell you all a story about an initiative that both Sarah and I worked on. It was quite experimental, and it basically failed. So we'll tell you a little story about that. Once upon a time, there was a product. For anonymity purposes, we're going to call it Product Strawberry. Product Strawberry was a new product. It had just released its first piece of software, and we were getting tons of excitement from our customers and lots of interest in new features. Really briefly, at Pivotal, in the org that Product Strawberry was being shipped in, it was traditional to release products every 3 months, or to release new software every 3 months that we called minors. We distinguish minors at Pivotal, meaning they will have new features. In between that 3 months, though, we can ship patches, and those will usually contain bug fixes or security fixes, but they won't contain new features or anything that was a breaking change. But for our product team, 3 months felt like a really long time to go without shipping features to our customers. Again, the product was new. There were a lot of customer requests coming in and a lot of features that we were really eager to deliver. And we wanted to ship them faster than quarterly. At Pivotal, we had some organizational complexities that were discouraging us from shipping minors more frequently, some of those being support contracts and other things that would cause a lot of burden on the engineering team. So a group of product folks, including myself and Sarah, another TPM on our team, some product leads, executive sponsors, we all decided we wanted to try an experiment and create a new release model that would allow us to ship GA features to customers at any pace we wanted, moving towards continuous delivery.
Cool. So what was the experiment? To run an experiment, you should have hypotheses, and the hypothesis that we had was like the product is new, a lot of customers are asking for new features, and it's exciting, so let's ship more. We want customers to get into the habit of upgrade frequently and take our features into production, which will also help with adoption of the new product and help our sales team. And looking at the cost, we believe that the cost of engineering, getting more features shipped, is less than just delaying features. So we decided to go with a speedy release model. If you remember this, we just said that in Pivotal, when we ship products every 3 months. And between those 3 months, we only ship patching for bug fixes and security. However, the new model would look like that. We want to introduce new features in between the 3 months. And it's up to customers if they want to sign up for the new release model or if they just want to consume every 3 months. So how did the timeline look for that experiment? We shipped the Strawberry in February, and everyone was excited, everyone was happy, everyone wants more features, and we're asking for more features, so we decided to go with the speedy model. And you will notice that the first thing we did after that is actually talking to our legal team and not our engineering team. The reason for that is we wanted to make sure we are not breaking any contracts with customers, and what we learned from our legal team is there will be an addendum that will require customers to sign up to be on the speedy release model. After a conversation with legal, we started conversing with our engineering teams and understanding what's the complexity from introducing more features that frequently. The conversation kept going, and at some point in August, we were like, legal was ready with the addendum, so we were ready to start talking to customers. After that, we learned something, and based on what we learned, we decided not to proceed with the speedy release models. And here's what we learned.
So, what really happened in that 10-month period? Well, we failed, kind of. We realized that the speedy releases weren't actually the best path forward, and it was not the best use of our time to keep pursuing them. And again, that happened in about a 9 to 10 month period. And the reason we say we sort of failed is because actually we learned a lot of information in that time period. So while the speedy release initiative no longer exists and we stopped putting work towards it, the true fruits of our labor were the learnings, and we were able to take those learnings and apply them. And if we were to do more experimental release models, we would have some learnings to base that off of. And we're going to share a couple of those learnings with you now. So first, we realized we had jumped into a solution. Our product folk met very early on, and we came up with a solution. I think that solution was sort of drafted in maybe less than a month. And we believed in it very strongly. And we also realized once we started talking to customers that we hadn't been asking the right questions, and we had been making a lot of assumptions about what our customers really wanted. If you ask a customer, do you want more features? They're always going to say yes. And so maybe not the best question to ask them. Instead, we realized we should have spent more time doing exploration and inceptions. At Pivotal, inceptions are planning meetings. We also realized that we have a great design team at Pivotal, and we should have collaborated with them much more closely, doing user interviews to better understand customer wants. We realized that the engineering complexity was a lot more difficult than we would have expected. We didn't really anticipate a lot of the added work for figuring out upgrade scenarios of this new release model, or that our product involved multiple component teams that were shipping software to build this single software product. And instead, we probably should have engaged engineering upfront a lot faster and prioritized their needs equally to the needs that the product team who was looking at this had. We also learned that a lot of change might not be the most sustainable thing. We had a new product, and we were really excited to use it to experiment because there were no precedents set up, and we had no expectations from customers outside of the first release we shipped. But we didn't consider the level of technical debt and process that we were adding to this new product. And because it had so many component teams, it wasn't the most stable at the time. And that led to a lot of that engineering complexity. And instead, while it's still having a new product can be a great place to start with an experiment, we might want to consider running the speedy release experiment or an experiment like that with a more stable engineering team.
Cool. So what's our takeaways from all of that? So to wrap up on the experiment, we learned that beta is not a bad solution. We can just do that. We don't have to provide production quality features for customers to consume. We can just give them hands-on on something that's not totally finished to get the feedback that we were looking for. We also learned that releasing beta to our internal teams, such as the support teams and the sales team, was essential to get their feedback as well. So we got what we want from just using beta releases. Also, I think for us, what we learned, both of us, is it took us 9 months to realize we were doing the wrong thing, and this was okay. And if you work at Pivotal, you will know that we have a safety culture where people are willing to experiment and they were willing to learn. And it was easy for us to pivot and to decide to just go with something else and not focus on doing the wrong thing and spend even more time on it. We still value customer feedback, and the intention was good, but the approach was not perfect. What's your takeaways? So these are the things that we want you leaving the room today to think about it. Think about your environment and think about your organization and what needs to, how can you have a healthy environment for experimentation? And we believe you should look into these three things. Feedback loops. You have to create feedback loops always. It's good, and if you have a feedback loop, that's good. Maybe it's too long for you to learn. So you need to think about how to get it shorter and try to, if you fail, just try to fail sooner. Running small experiments is a thing. So back then we tried to do a lot of stuff for a new product, so there's a lot of change and we couldn't just do everything at the same time. So small experiments are easier to run and to get feedback on. Continuously measure the value. At some point you have to stop and ask yourself, are you providing the value that you intended to, or are you wasting time and money? Psychological safety. We added this quote here from Amy. Amy's team believe that teams who are psychologically safe in their environment are more productive and have high potential of succeeding because they know they will never be blamed and no one will say they are doing the wrong thing. So that's important. If you don't have this in your current team or organization, you need to start thinking, how can you create that? And lastly, experimentation. We believe experimentation is healthy and it's okay if you failed because sometimes you will not fail and sometimes you will actually do something, and all innovations come from theory and people experimenting with this theory, as long as you keep in mind that you need to stop, measure, and learn, so you either persist or pivot from where you initially started. And with that, we'll go to questions. Thank you. That's a good question. So the question is, how did we learn to accept failures? I have been in Pivotal for a year and a half. Other people have been there for like 6 years, long time. And I think the key thing from my perspective is having this healthy environment, knowing that no one will blame you, knowing that if you failed at something, you can come to work the next day and it's okay. No one will point fingers at you. So I feel like it's more a cultural awareness more than individual thing. I don't know, what do you think?
Yeah, I would agree with Sarah that I think the culture of Pivotal, and as we mentioned, psychological safety, builds in that comfort in failing and knowing that we're not going to sort of be blamed or humiliated if we come to work and say, hey, this just didn't work out, so we're not going to put efforts towards it. Because we can say, it didn't work, here are all the learnings we have, and being able to share those learnings and showing that that is the fruit of our labor has just been a culture that really promotes us being able to do experiments.
How do you best balance the time you allocate to delivering business needs versus experimenting?
Great question. So the question is, how do you best allocate your time for delivering business needs versus experimenting? I think, again, sort of looking at having those fast feedback loops, and with a lot of experiments saying we want to time box what we're working on, and if we don't have learnings at the end of this time box that we can show, whether or not we want to continue or stop this experiment is one way to sort of ensure that you're balancing that appropriately. I also think making sure that your stakeholders are very aware throughout the process of how the experiment is going, how long you expect the experiment to run is another key piece. So for this experiment we ran, we were working really closely with our stakeholders. We were having meetings with them every 1 or a couple of weeks to kind of check in on the progress.
When you're figuring out what to experiment on, how much has to play into how are we going to measure whether this is successful or not? Because I can think of some experiments you're like, I don't know how we would tell if this worked or not. So how do you balance that question of trying something new and being able to measure whether it works?
So the question is, how do you measure and know that from the experiment you're doing the right thing. Did I get that right?
Yeah.
Okay. I guess in my experience, it's what we learned actually, because we were so excited about this. We thought that's the right thing, and we'd never thought about the measure. For us, success was like, we will have 100 customers just on the Speedy Release model, which was not the case, right? So I would say that's something to consider, and now, like having beta as our way of releasing more frequently, we can track that, and we can engage in conversations with customers to learn from them.
As a developer, I like this mentality, but I also want to be aware of like customers' expectations. I know we're insulated from failure on that level, but if we fail to meet customers' expectations, what are real-world scenarios where we can smooth that over and still maintain this culture?
Yeah, so the question was, when we fail to meet customer expectations, how can we sort of smooth that relationship over with the customer, correct?
Yeah, and maintain this safe place
Yeah.
for experimentation.
Yeah, and maintain the safe place for experimentation. So in this example, we had 2 customers we were working really closely with, and I think one way we really helped that is, while we didn't bring them along the journey from the beginning, once we started engaging with them, we really tried to bring them along as much as we could and explain what we were trying to deliver to them, why we were trying to do it, and kind of say, these are our expectations. How do you feel about that? And then took their feedback, and some of the feedback we basically got from them was like, we don't actually like this, like, please don't do this. And we took that to heart, and we were like, okay, wait, they're not actually going to consume this. Let's try to shift it. And when we tried to shift our mentality, we still brought them into the conversation. And I think, again, just being very open with them around what those expectations are for an experiment you're running is a really good way to kind of try to help that relationship so they understand where we're coming from.
Any more questions? Please.
What's your current experiment? What are you working on now?
That's
You're looking forward to
awesome
it, yeah.
question. So what's our current experiment? That's a tough question because I don't know how much I should share. I would say trying to align R&D organization into more formal way of communicating the outcomes we're trying to achieve and how this is aligning with the big mission that we have at Pivotal. That's all I can say.
And how are you measuring that?
We have ideas. We can talk later. Cool. If no more questions, thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it.